Guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm joined in studio with the mixed martial arts fighter. He needs no introduction if you follow the sport closely, especially if you're in Ireland and also here in the UK. Will Fleury.
Will fucking Fleury. Boom.
You know, seeing you online on, especially on Instagram, it's not just what I'm seeing in the cage, but you are a character. It's like you just when someone first sees you, meets you, as in you look like a gentleman, but there's also this kind of like whatever and fuck you side to you as well. As in watching what you say, as in your intros to fights coming up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I've been around long enough that I don't really consider myself a shit talker, but I'm gonna call out bullshit, and there's a lot of people in the game that are full of shit. So I think since I've joined Octagon, they've given me a bit more license to really just be who I am. And I don't know, I'm just like the worst thing you can be in this game is fake. And I think you earn your legitness. And I've been around a long fucking time, so I'm one of the few legit cons out there who doesn't like I don't go out of my way to talk shit, but at the same time, if I see something that's fucking, I think is funny and I think fucking somebody's acting like a fucking toolbox, yeah, I'll call that shit out. So I'm just enjoying this phase of my career, basically.
No, of course, of course. No, I love that because it's one thing that's missing from a lot of society today. People just pretend to be something that they're not, always being so pretentious. And I think mixed martial arts, MMA is one place that you just can't pretend it's either you've got it or you haven't got it.
You would think, but then there's a lot of cons out there who are pretending to be something they're not. And look, for a lot of guys, it seems to work. I didn't get into this to be anybody other than myself, so that's what I want to be.
Your last fight at Octagon 56, really, really good. You stayed on Daniel Skivor's, I can't pronounce his surname properly. Daniel Skivor's back really, really well, really, really well. And you kept him on the ground virtually for the whole fight until you managed to get the win. I mean, you just talk a bit about that. How did you feel on the walkout from the cage?
A little bit different to normal because my hand was broken pretty badly. So I broke it sparring with Sean Strickland a couple of weeks before the fight. It was a pretty bad break, so I wasn't able to really train for the last week, or well, last 2.5 weeks really before the fight. Um, so warming up, I realized I didn't have a lot of my grips. I couldn't really base with my hand. And then when I did take him down in that fight, I noticed I really couldn't do a whole lot. Like I was trying to attack the back. As soon as he was grabbing over the hand, it was just too painful to really do a whole lot with. So it was actually on the feet that I hurt him pretty badly. I caught him a good liver kick and then caught him on the side of the head near the end of the first round, and he went down. And then I thought I'd get it finished right before the end of the first round, but referee didn't step in. He managed to hang on, but I knew then I was like, right, he's fucked for the second round. So I finished him pretty early in the second. Um, yeah, it was a weird fight. It was weird because I haven't really been that unsure of what was going to happen, where you're nervous. Like, obviously, it's a fucking fight, anything can happen, but normally you have a level of peace and acceptance with that. And you're like, well, all I can do is my very fucking best. With this, it was more, I don't know physically how well I'm going to be able to perform on the night, which is a new, I've never really had that before. And thankfully, I was able to get it done. And I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to go in there and mentally just shut that shit down and do my job anyway. So proud of that. But overall, look, I got a finish in my debut. I'm happy. That guy was the number five guy in the division. I think I just showed my level there that I can still go in and finish the number five guy in the division with the broken hand, with a fairly serious injury. But at the same time, I don't think it was that clean a performance. I think I can show a hell of a lot more, and I'm planning on showing a hell of a lot more in 3 weeks' time.
Going into the fights, and it's something that a lot of fighters, it's not uncommon or unheard of, but your injury, your broken hand, did you keep that to yourself or did you let the right people know before heading into the cage? Because I know if you let officials know that one of the fighters is injured, there's a good chance that they could stop the fight. So the fighter says, you know what, to hell with that. I'm gonna go and get this fight done. They'd rather fight and win than sit us out.
Yeah, well, look, you can't let those guys know because they're going to call the fight if they do. So if you really want to do it, you're not going to let them guys know, are you?
Mm.
No, my corner knew. The people close to me obviously knew because they were warm. Like, anybody who I was training with for the 2.5 weeks before the fight would have known. Um, but obviously, you want to do your best to stop the word from getting out there, and you don't want your opponent knowing either. But I imagine he had some sort of an inkling that something was up even before the fight. Like, I think Octagon knew before the fight, because I think my management found out. I'm not 100% sure about all
Mm.
that, to be honest, but like, yeah, they're like, even I think what was his name? Luke Barnett said it in the commentary. He was like, "Oh well, we knew about this beforehand," and I wasn't sure how much they knew, but
Mm.
apparently they did. So you want the people who don't have a vested interest in knowing to know as much as they need to know, but anybody who's official, anybody on the medical side of things, obviously you have to hide it from that. And
Yeah.
like, it's a tricky game, it's fucking because you want to put yourself in as good a position as possible to be going out and perform, but at the same, like, biggest thing is, look, okay, if you want to go and do it, it's on you. You're the guy in charge ultimately. Like, so you make those decisions. And if you don't want those guys finding out, you're going to do your absolute fucking best. Like, I had to kind of fuck around during my medical because actually the doctor, he was pretty thorough. And I noticed he was checking everybody else's hands.
Mm.
And it was myself and Carl Moore there when we were doing the medical. And like, Carl kind of worked with me and we just distracted him at the right time while he was checking my knuckles and stuff. So we got through
Ah.
it like because he wasn't an idiot, that guy. And I think there was somebody else with a handbrake who managed, or a guy with a handbrake got caught actually, or he asked before the fight, he was like, "Is there any reason I can't clear you?" And I think your man said to him, "Well, I have a broken hand," which, like, man, if you want to fight, don't fucking say that. Like, um, so he he wasn't gonna let, like, if he'd found that, he obviously wasn't gonna let me fight. But just as he checked my knuckles and as he was checking the thumb side of things, Carl asked him a question. I just stood up and took off my top to get him to examine my chest. So yeah,
Mm.
that's that
Smart
side of it. Like,
thinking. Yeah.
you have to fucking you gotta skirt around things a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, so I understand for the right reasons you did what you did. No, I completely get that. Now, for your upcoming fight, Oscons 62, your next opponent, Pavel Langer, as in, are we going to see something similar to what we saw at Octagon 56, or have you gone back to the drawing board to, as in, tweak things, up your A game?
Yeah, look, it's gonna be a cleaner performance. Like, I was compromised going at that fight and I still managed to finish Daniel. But I want to go in there and knock the shit out of Pavel and do it clean, you know. Clean shots, no heavy grappling. I'm not like I'm looking to finish and I'm looking to finish this early. And like within that, measured, you know, Pavel's a guy who gets hurt in a lot of his fights. So one thing he does very well is he gets hurt, he survives, he makes it a bit of a dogfight. I will hurt them. It's on me to pick them shots afterwards and to know those shots and to have it sharp, and just stay in that range where you're still tagging the guy, still hurting the guy, but not getting sucked into a dogfight. You're not getting clinched, you're not getting pulled into somewhere where you're going to have to expend a lot of energy and make it a dirtier fight. Stay at your range, pick your shots, be smooth, be clinical, put on that big finish.
When you say you're going to hurt him, with other fighters, other guys, you know, other some people may laugh when they said, but when you said there's this kind of seriousness that kind of suggests this person really, you're really not kidding around.
No, but like, look, we're playing fucking,
Mm.
it's not a game, we're going in there to fuck each other up. And like, I'm too aware of the consequences. I've been that guy. I've been the guy who got fucked up a bunch of times. And I don't want to ever be that guy again. And look, I love the game. That's why I'm willing to play. There's consequences on everybody's side. I'm very aware of what those consequences are, but I'm very determined to be the guy who's doing the fucking, not getting fucked. So like, there is that thing of like, I believe like the reason I train my balls off is because I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the fact that, the work that I'm doing now is making me a better fighter and that I can go in there and just fuck these guys up. And look, I've proven that again. Like, I'm on a 6 fight win streak now. I've dropped 5 out of my last 6 opponents. Now, I've only started finishing the guys recently, but I plan on continuing that streak of finishing guys. And even like, I'll be honest, like, look, let's say Pavel does survive. I'm going to be a guy consistently damaging him. And that's what I have been throughout all of my last six fights. The guy consistently doing damage. Um, and I don't like, yeah, look, I have a very good defensive game these days. I don't get tagged much, but like, I know there's a dog in me. And if I do start getting tagged, I'm the guy who's going to come back. I'm not an idiot, but at the same time, I can keep a high pressure pace going, and I'll be the guy giving more damage than I'm getting in them situations because I put myself in those situations and sparring a lot. And like, I've kind of developed a style where it's going to be a more exciting, more interesting kind of a fight based. Like, I'm the guy who comes forward now, and I absorb, but I give, and I give a lot more than I absorb. So, yeah, look, like, if Pavel's able to make this an exciting fight, if he can weather the storm and, do what he's done in other fights where he's managed to make it a bit of a dogfight, I have a lot of dog in me. So, like, there's the potential there for it to be an interesting from another person's perspective. But, like, from my point of view, that's just like a lack of me being clinical enough. But yeah, it could be a very, grunty, fucking violent fight.
Like you look the sort that will definitely, I mean, you go in there and give it your all and come out with a win. But you look like, from what I've seen, you seem to be the sort of fights that will definitely put on a show that people will be entertained and they will remember who you are. They'll remember the name.
Well, look, there's 50,000 people, or fucking more than 50,000, nearly 60,000 people coming to this thing. I
Yeah.
do genuinely feel a little bit of an onus to like go out there and entertain and put on a bit of a fucking show. And
Hmm.
like, look, man, I've been working for the last 12 years to be able to go and do that. So it's kind of a fucking shit statement on myself if I can't go out there and entertain those people. And I really fucking want to. So I do feel like I want to go out and put on a show. I expect myself to go out and put on a show. And like, you know, these are kind of the moments that like 10 years ago I would have been shitting myself if I had this opportunity. And now I've worked up to the point where it's like, oh man, this feels like such a fucking privilege. There's gonna be 50 plus thousand people showing up to watch you fight. And like, you know, it is funny that if you'd said that to me, even 5, 6 years ago, I think I would have felt a massive pressure. I genuinely don't feel any pressure at all anymore. It feels like, wow, that's fucking class. Now, I want to go out there and fucking put on a show, but it's like privilege. Like, I can't even think of a better word than privilege, but like, I'm incredibly excited to go and have that, like, to have that opportunity to go and entertain people. And I know that I'll rise to that challenge. And it feels like a challenge. Like, that's probably the word challenge, to like get the best out of yourself for those moments. But there's nothing in me that says, like, oh, you can't do that, or like, oh, I don't doubt that I can do that at all. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
that's,
Yeah.
I think that's just like the training and the work ethic and all that type of shit that gives you that like confidence to go, no, no, you are that fucking guy. You've put yourself in all the situations you need to have put yourself to go out there and perform. And you've done it fucking plenty of times before. So like, I suppose you eradicate doubt through training. And that's what I've done over the last 12 years. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to be this guy now and to go out there and fuck up to get like, you know, I feel like I'm in a very good place to go and perform now.
Speaking of the upcoming fight, how's fight camp coming along and how is making weight? How's that going?
So far, all good. Like, obviously, touch wood, no injuries coming up or anything like that. But yeah, so far, like, weight's pretty good. I'm actually a good bit lighter than I was this time for my last camp. So I'm like 102 now, and I'm 3 weeks out, which I think the last camp I was 106 at this stage, and I did a much bigger cut. But like, what's funny is I've been because I track my calories on my fitness pal. I've actually been eating more, but probably just doing a little bit more aerobic cardio and like moving around a little bit more, and the weight seems to stay down. So like overall, body seems to be quite healthy, performing really well. But look, man, the biggest thing is you just get in there and fucking do it on the night. Like all that shit, it's irrelevant. Even if I wasn't in the best place, you still can go in and perform on the night. I honestly believe like if I got a call, and I know obviously now I've been in fight camp for a while, but on an average day, if you call me up and you say, "Hey, well, there's a fight in 3 weeks' time," I could be as fresh as I've ever fucking been going into that fight. Because look, you're an athlete anyway. Like you should be fucking training regardless, and I am like
Mm.
most of the year. There's very few periods of time that I haven't been training fairly consistently unless I've been injured or something like that. I think your skill set's the main thing you should be working on. And like, look, I've been doing a bunch of conditioning and all that type of shit. And like, look, if this fight gets deep into the third round, I'll be performing at the same pace I was at the start of the first round because I've done the work to be able to do that right now. But I think as a fighter, you shouldn't need that. As in, it's important in a way, but you should have a skill set that's able to finish most fights before that. And that's your job as a professional to be
No.
able to go out there and pick somebody apart and to be able to do it like clean. And that's what I mean about this fight. Like, if I'm good enough, I should be able to do this clean. If I get sucked into a dogfight, okay, it's more entertaining for everybody else, but it means that I haven't been as professional in my training or even in like my insight into this fight isn't where it should have been. And I wasn't reading the situation the right way prior to the fight. And that then on the night, I didn't allow myself to read his movements the way I should have. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, yeah.
get like you see all these guys like Gaethje and they get involved in all these wars. And like, look, fair enough, that's his style. That's how he breaks guys down. But to me, it's like you don't want to be that kind of fighter all the time. You want to be the guy who's picking guys apart. You want to be the Anderson Silva. You want to be the guy who's like just consistently tagging people without getting fucked up. You know?
Mm.
And if you can do that and finish, that's that's what martial arts is, man. You know?
You you're a fighter, and I think as us as fight fans, I guessing that yeah, dogfights entertaining, but from your own perspective, you are a professional athlete, so you've got to go in there and show the skill set and show how you actually fight the proper way. I get
Yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
like, look, different guys have different perspectives on what that is. To me, it's getting hit, or sorry, not getting hit, hitting the guy and not getting hit. And like I suppose demonstrating that you know how that guy's going to move and that he doesn't know how you're going to move and consistently tagging him and then like unlocking keys with that, like creating holes, hitting him in a way that like he's not seeing it coming and you're hurting him as well. And that's something I've worked on a lot over the last kind of like 18 months because I was able to tag guys quite a lot. Like my last few fight, like I was able to touch guys up quite a bit and, consistently outland them and even like come in and out of range quite well. But I wasn't really putting them away. No, I was hurting guys, I was dropping guys, I was doing wasn't like I was just touching them, touching them, touching them. I was actually being fucking pretty effective and powerful at times. But now my whole style is like you're just creating one hole. And if you do it well enough, you should just need that one chance and then it should be over. And like getting your hips fully into things. And look, a lot of that is just like a sense, a balance, a thing of like you can put all the fucking words on it you want, but like you can go in and demonstrate it by knocking a guy out pretty quickly, like. And I think like ultimately people will say, "Oh, you just moved the wrong way. It was unlucky, whatever." Because I got knocked out in like my first fight with Bellator, and I look at the guy, like people are like, "Oh, it was a lucky punch." It's like there is no fucking lucky punch. The guy swang. He did the right thing at the right time. You didn't fucking protect yourself the way you should have. You got knocked out. That's what this is like. So it's on you to create those moments, and to see those holes and create the holes.
Mm.
That's why I
No.
like it's a fucking incredibly interesting sport. Like it really
Uh,
is. Like I still like I'm very lucky in the fact that I feel like my fascination with it has only grown over the years. And it doesn't show any sign of fucking like as I've gotten a little bit older, I'm probably more obsessed with it than I was 5, 6 years ago. Which is cool. So like please God that stays going and I keep that hunger.
One thing that I have to say about the mixed martial arts, I think it does teaches it gives you that mindset of when you are in that kind of offensive, when you're going to go as in head to head with someone in a combat situation, you've got to try and read their body language to see what they're going to do next, predict it, and then see what you're going to do to go on the defensive side, I guess. Would you agree
Yeah,
with that? Yeah.
yeah, of course, yeah. And like I suppose that should all be subconscious at this. Like you train it consciously, but on the night, you really shouldn't be thinking consciously about all that shit. And like it should just happen. And that's what I mean about your reading of the situation beforehand. If you've done enough work on breaking the guy down and how he's going to move and drilled all that stuff effectively, You don't need to think. You just go in and be primal on the night, and like your natural patterns will take over. The things you've programmed your brain to go in and do that stuff. And if you've done that effectively, then it will just happen. Like if you're there on the night trying to read a guy and trying to consciously say, "Oh, look, he's
Mm,
moving his left hand, and maybe I should throw this." It's too fucking late now.
mm.
You know, you can instinctively read something, but you won't be thinking about that. That will be something your brain's done, you know, by itself without you consciously recognizing it. And that's what I mean. Like, when you get into those flow states and you're performing properly, you don't know what the fuck's going on. You just know, wow, shit, I'm tagging the shit out of this guy. And the best thing you can do in those situations is stay out of your own way. You know, just let it fucking happen. Don't consciously get involved here. Just observe.
It's the first one me speaking to you, and you are a, definitely one of the heavyweights in the Irish MMA scene. Can you give a bit, just a bit of a backstory as, but yourself and just how eventually your path led you to mixed martial arts, where you are now?
Yeah. So look, I was a rugby player as a kid. I played rugby from the age of 9 to 21. And I know like I watched Bravo I saw a couple of UFC cards on Bravo back in the day, when I was about 15, 16, and that was my first time seeing MMA as a sport. And I was fascinated with it straight away. And I was like, wow, that'd be class to be able to do. But at the time, I didn't know that there was anywhere in Ireland you could do that. And then I broke my foot playing rugby. And one of the physios that I was working with, he told me the best thing I could do was boxing footwork. So I went down to a boxing gym. There was a cage in the boxing gym. And I was like, oh, fuck, you're doing MMA. The guy was like, yeah, we've got a coach coming over from America. He's a really good wrestling guy. That ended up being Justin Robbins, who was fighting in the WEC at the time. So he came over and he coached us in Cork. So I started doing MMA a little bit, but I was still playing rugby. And then another guy, Jake Hecht, who made it into the UFC while he was in Cork, training with us. Um, he was our coach then for about a year and a half. And we had a really good team. We had a really good amateur team. Came up through that. I lived in Cork for those couple of years and then moved over to London, trained in London Shoot for a while, about a year and a half. And then moved back to Cork. Jim and Cork ended up kind of like separating. And then I moved up to SPG. I've been in SPG the last 8 years. I've been over in Vegas once or twice, and I've been training just in Birmingham there last week. So like I'm gonna start training a little bit more all over, but like overall I've been based in Dublin for the last 8, 9 years now. And that's kind of been where the vast majority of my pro career has taken place. But like I've traveled all over to fight. Like I was down in Africa. I did the fucking EFC reality show back in 2017.
Mm.
Um, fought in fucking Jordan, Abu Dhabi, Rome, fucking Oklahoma, Vegas. Good few different places, good few different promotions, Bellator, PFL, winning record with every promotion I've been in as well. So like, yeah, look, I've been around, I've fucking done this thing. That's why I'm like able to sit here and talk shit and be pretty fucking confident about it. Like I feel like I'm probably very underrated as a fighter, and fucking that's probably what's driving me to still be so fucking passionate about this whole thing is like maybe like, I try to not look for external validation, but it is definitely fucking part of, your psyche and your soul a little bit that you want other people to recognize you as being damn fucking good at what you do. Um, that's something that I still want to go and fucking achieve. And like, I feel like Octagon are giving me the road to go and do that. And I'm very determined still to go and show, hey, look, I'm at this fucking level and I'm one of the best martial artists out there, if not the fucking best. I like this thing. Like, I feel like my ego's at a point where it's like, I don't know how fucking good I am. I just know I'm damn good. And I want to find a guy that can beat me. And like,
Mm.
if I get to that guy and I do everything I fucking can do, and I like know that I've performed to the level that I could have performed that, cool. I'm at a stage now where I just want to fucking find out. Because I'll be very pissed off if I end up like, yeah, I bet the shit out of all these guys in the gym, and yet I never got the chance to go and show that. I never got that really fucking super high level guy that I never like probably the biggest name I fought is Chris Jocko, and we had a very fucking close fight, but I won the fight. and then afterwards I got done for the steroids and all that shit. So like there's all that, but now it's kind of like, right, I want to get back to build up to like another big name fight. So I'm hoping I might get Carlos Vermola soon. It's unlikely he'll fight me because he knows I'm damn good. Um, but maybe I could get in somebody like Gustafsson or another big name that I could beat the fuck out of. So we'll see how it all goes.
Just there's a few questions I just want to ask you there.
Sorry, man.
Do you do you feel that maybe because you said earlier that you love this sport, not just the competing in the sport, but studying it, the different things you learn from it, the different things you're shown from every time you compete, every time you train. Do you feel that maybe you should have started earlier? It would be best if you started earlier, that you wish you discovered the sport sooner and discovered your talents in the sport sooner.
I don't know because maybe I wouldn't be as passionate about it if I had. So like I read a thing that Rocky Marciano only started boxing when he was 24 years old, and he's the only undefeated heavyweight. Um, Now Usyk might beat that, but you don't know. Like I can't go down roads I didn't go down, so I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about those. Like I feel very lucky to have found this thing. I feel very lucky that I've managed to be this fucking good at it, and I want to get better and better. But like I've often found myself thinking about things that could have made me better over the years. And yeah, it's good to look back and analyze, but like I also think you can't change the past.
Mm.
So you may as well just focus on the future and make that as good as possible.
Yeah, yes. I absolutely agree with that, definitely. Your team's SB, I mean, one of them needs no introduction because they've got some massive names coming out of the SBG Islands.
Mhm.
And then Samson Martial Arts. Now, Samson Martial Arts, I've not heard about them so much. Can you talk a bit about them? Just about,
Yeah,
as
so
in,
that was the gym I was talking about in Cork. I haven't actually trained there in a long time, but they're good lads. Like, as in, that was my first gym. It was originally the MMA clinic, and then it became Trials MMA, and now it's Samson Martial Arts. So that's run by a couple of guys, Kieran O'Brien, two of them, Kieran Senior, Kieran Junior, and then a guy, Dylan Sheehan. And I was training there for years. That was that gym in Cork where Jake Hecht was originally the coach. And I left there in 2015, I think it was. And I've been training up in Dublin since then. But like, still have a very good relationship with lads,
mm,
still get on very well. There was no major falling out or anything. I just think, like, especially being a bigger guy, you need other training partners that are at a decent level. And at the time, I just didn't really have that down in Cork anymore because I loved living in Cork. I love the culture down there. I love like the city. It's brilliant. And like even the gym had a really good atmosphere. So
mm,
I was sad to leave it, but at the same time, I needed to if I was going to progress my career. And like,
mm.
I'm glad I did at the end of the day.
What's Octagon MMA? How did you as in, how did you come about the promotion and getting signed up by them? Because I can see for the past, well, it's come to my attention anyway that more than a year they've picked up quite a few big names, including yourself, Shamrock. There's is it what's your is it Armand the Crane um just the surname I can't repronounce.
Perfect. Perfect.
Her sake. There's the other guy, Dennis Frimpong, and quite a few other guys, big names. Well, yeah, big names on the local scene they've picked up. I mean, how did you come across the get signed up to them?
Yeah. So after I was finished with the PFL, like they didn't renew the contract after the ban. So then it was kind of just seeing what was out there. And Octagon made me by far the best offer. And it was also the prospect of fighting on stadium shows and, doing what I'm about to do in 3 weeks' time, where, this fight actually means quite a lot for my career. I have the ability to go out and perform in front of a hell of a lot of fans, get decently well paid doing it, and hopefully in future, much better pay. But also, you're in title contention now. You're building something with your career. So that was the main reason. Because there was other offers, and even like financially, I probably could have done slightly better elsewhere, but like this made the most sense overall. And so far, I'm very glad I chose this route.
There's something that I've heard you say before about the UFC, and I know it's the when you ask fighters which is a would you like to fight in the UFC and which is a big promotion you like to get signed up by, and the obvious one is them also fighting championship. But you did say something in the past that did make my ear stand up, that if you had a loss in one of the other promotions or so, or if there's one other, I think something that's just not right with your record, they won't take you on. They won't sign you up. As in, if you had a loss in Bellator PFL, they won't sign you up. Is that really the case?
I believe it was
Going,
Sean Sheehan who said that in my last interview. So I did an interview with Sphere May a few weeks ago, and he was saying that that was one of the that he's heard that that's one of the things. I've no idea. I was never told that. Um,
wow.
so that's not me who was saying it, but at the same time, it's Sean, who's a pretty reputable journalist, and uh, I don't know. That's like I've seen contradictions to that. I've seen other guys who have lost in Bellator or PFL or whatever, and they've been signed.
Okay.
So like look at Chandler. Chandler had a good few losses within Bellator, and he's now
Yeah.
pretty big in the UFC. So like I think all these rules are rules until they're not, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I like I'm looking at what it takes to get in there at the moment, and it's not obvious to anyone really. And like, what's that guy who won last night? Cage Wars, Luke Riley, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, like if they don't sign him, and like even the fact that they let Muhammad Makayev go, and I know that there was a little bit of bullshit around with him, and that maybe they were having a fucking hard time getting him matched, but it's still like the guy is undefeated. He's clearly very good. You would think that they'd kind of just match him up harder and try and get that undefeated record gone and then get rid of him. But to let him go at this point in his career, it just kind of shows that they're saying, well, fuck you, we don't care, we're the brand anyway. Um, and maybe that's the market position they feel like they've earned. But I don't know. I like, again, this isn't some one fighter that's going to change this thing, but like, I think collectively, if promotions like Octagon can do a very good job fucking building guys to a point where they might not need to leave.
Yeah.
And then you have legitimate challenge. It was like KSW were doing with a couple of guys a few years ago, where it looked like some of the best guys in the world were legitimately outside of, and even like you look at Bellator, someone like Bellator slash PFL now, whatever. They have some really high level martial artists that just don't do a really good job promoting them, and
Yeah, yeah.
the legitimacy of those guys seems lower because of the promotion, but actually their skill set's very fucking good. So
Yes, yeah.
it's it's hard to really. They definitely have the branding down, and they definitely have the market control very well from a perspective, like from a seemingly fucking your brand, like their brand is worth a hell of a lot more than pretty much every other promotion, and that's pretty obvious if you're involved in MMA. Like nobody really gives too much of a fuck unless you're fighting the UFC in Ireland anyway. In fairness, in Central Europe, Octagon seem to have done a ridiculously good job at building what they are. KSW in Poland is huge. You get people who follow KSW more than UFC. You get people who follow Octagon more than the UFC in those countries, which is brilliant. Fair fucks to them. That's amazing that they've done that. Here, England, Ireland, it's pretty much like, well, if you're not in the UFC, who the fuck are you? Like, from the average fan's point of view. And like, fair play to the UFC, they've built that brand. Well done to
Yeah.
them. But I do feel like if somebody was willing to come along and be professional, put the work in from a promoter's point of view, that's not that difficult to challenge now. Because even like one thing that I mentioned this previously, like UFC aren't that good at building a narrative anymore. When you
Yeah,
go back and
that's
watch the early fights, actually they gave you the character and they kind of like spelled it out for you who this guy was. These days, they have a hell of a lot of really interesting characters, like Brian Battle there or whatever. I wouldn't know much about him if he wasn't on tough, but like
mm,
I feel like every time that guy fights, I'm interested in his fights. So, I follow him on Instagram and all that type of shit. I don't know him personally at all. You know, there's some really interesting characters in the UFC who I probably don't know. And I'm sure a lot of those guys have very interesting stories, but I feel like they don't do a very good job of showing them anymore. And then you've commentators talking about like a 31-year-old man like he's a kid with fuck all of his skill set. You're like, well, this guy's better than you ever were, mate. Like,
Yeah,
you're listening to the
exactly.
commentary sometimes, you're kind of going like, this is an absolute joke. Like, you lads not only are clueless, but you're also like talking down
Yeah.
about a guy who's actually better than
Man,
you
oh
ever
man.
were.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, so there's levels of delusion that are fucking should be fairly
absolutely.
obvious to anyone who's involved in the sport now. Where like maybe a casual fan doesn't see that, but it is, from my point of view, it's a little bit off-putting and like I wouldn't say frustrating, but like somewhat disheartening to just like a lot of the time when I'm watching fights these days, I'll just turn the commentary off, like even if it's live, because you're just like, I'm not actually gaining anything by having this on. And look,
Yeah,
I love like I love the narrative side of sport.
yeah,
That's it's part of what makes it really interesting. I'm not just there to watch technique for technique and study every guy. Like I'll do that when I'm about to fight a guy, or even if I watch a fight a couple of days after it's happened, I'll be more in that mindset. When I'm watching live sport, hey, I want the drama, I want the fucking the emotion, the
yes,
narrative,
yeah.
all that shit. And like I really feel like the commentary do so, like in general do
Mhm.
such a bad job at building that these days, and it's actually nearly off-putting. Where like there's two guys exchanging, and they're like, "Yeah, this kid's doing pretty good." You're like, man, there's two guys putting their fucking lives on the line. They get like
Yeah.
this fucking 15 minutes every 6 months, and you're here talking about like some other shit. You know, give them their fucking due, mate. This is their careers on the line. You're
Yeah,
okay. You
yeah.
get paid no matter what fuck happens, but
Exactly,
like
exactly.
it's a bit like, yeah, I find it a lot. Like, I'm getting worked up now, but I do
No,
find it very
no, it's
disrespectful and a bit,
understandable.
yeah. And like, you've guys who are 22, 23 years old and they've put their whole fucking lives on the line here. And like, they probably don't have any option B. And they're going out there pouring their soul into this fight. And the guy's barely paying attention to it. They're trying to like make banter about some other shit.
Mm.
Oh, DC, you do this. Oh, Khabib said this. Who gives a fuck? Talk
Yeah,
about what's in front of you, mate.
exactly. Yeah,
You know what I mean? And yeah, yeah, I think like look, I also think like fans would find it a hell of a lot more interesting. And it's starting this culture in a sport in the
mm.
sport of like, oh, that guy's a bum or that guy's it's like you're calling a fucking 23-year-old who's gone out and poured his heart and soul into something a bum. What sort of fucking attitude is that? Like,
Mm.
what the fuck are you saying? Like, mate, you're sitting on a couch watching these cunts. You've done nothing with yourself, like,
Exactly, exactly.
and the
Yes,
level of delusion there,
I know. I know.
like, but it's being supported by the commentary. It's being supported by like this kind of like barely paying attention kind of fucking thing
Mm.
of like you haven't even done research. You don't even know this guy's backstory because you're a lazy fuck who gets paid no matter what. Like, so I feel like that's a real problem
Ca-
in the sport at the moment. And look, it's not any like a lot of things with the sport that are fucking complex and whatever, and they're hard to fix. That's a pretty fucking easy fix because there are damn good commentary. Like I listen to Daniel Strauss, and even like Brian Lacey, who's involved with Octagon,
Yeah,
fucking brilliant. You know what I mean?
yes,
The
yeah,
guy
no, yeah.
fucking does a lot of research.
Yes,
He
he
knows
does.
you. Like, like even like shit about me, like he just knows my whole career because he's been invested in the sport for a while. And it
Well,
comes across
yeah,
when
no,
he talks. You could feel it,
no, of
like, and
course.
like it also makes it a hell of a lot more exciting for anyone watching. Cause like I watch the Octagon fights and
Yeah.
I feel like I've a good idea who the character that I'm watching is.
Can we
So I'm a lot more invested because of that.
can we reconnect? So the time limit has come on
Oh yeah.
briefly. All right, I'll be right back. All right.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You were saying earlier that the sport you love it, and as time has gone on, the sport's only fascinated you more and more and more as you've gotten older. And I think the way you were talking about how sometimes you just can't stand the commentary, you just turn off the commentary and just watch the fight happening itself. That is testament to that. So the sport really, is in your blood. You're one of the real ones. Yeah,
Cheers. Yeah.
you
Well,
are.
look, fuck it. Look, I suppose the privilege, like, or the thing I get out of that is just enjoying the whole thing. Like, you, the more you look for fucking the parts you love, the more you actually love what it is. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like, I'm talking there about how the commentary frustrates me, but at the end of the day, I feel like I'm very lucky to have something in my life that I'm this passionate about, that I give this much of a fuck about, and like that excites me that much that I can get that upset by something being a bit shitty about it, overall. Like, so that's actually a good thing, really.
The thing is, I have to say about the UFC, for the past 2 or 3 years, probably since more so since the pandemic, they might build up a lot of hype about with an upcoming event and a fight card, but on the night, on fight night, fight day, call it whatever you want, I remember times I've been very disappointed with the fight performances I've seen in the cage. It just doesn't what was all the hype for? And the event just wasn't that great, wasn't that good. So I think they capitalized on all the build up to the fight. That's where they really make their money, I guess.
Yeah, look, like obviously that depends on the individual athlete and all that type of shit. But like overall, I feel like in general the standard in the sport has become a lot better. I do feel like the commentary diminishes things slightly. But if you go and watch an average fight card these days, you're seeing a very high level of martial arts. You're seeing a very good product. That's like regardless of you know. I even think like I go to amateur shows these days, like local domestic amateur shows, and I'm shocked at the standard. Like I was commentating on a card down in Kilkenny a couple of months ago, and some of the level of striking and some of the level of like just MMA awareness some of the young lads have, and like just the standard in general, I was blown away by it. And like, these would be guys who are maybe only going to fight a couple of times in their career. They're probably not going to go to be full on pros. It's a hell of a lot better than it was 10 or 15 years ago. Like if I look at back at my own amateur fights, we were shy, we were shockingly bad. And like these days, the general standard's a lot higher. And by and large, if I'm looking at a UFC card, I'm pretty blown away by like most guys are pretty good. But at the same time, yeah, like I've often been disappointed with how certain fights have went, but sometimes that's just starts to make fights.
Do you think the media over here in the UK and in Ireland probably has a part to play the fighters not in clearly talented fighters not being marketed well enough?
I don't know if I think that's culture and media are part of setting culture. But it's like I'm saying about like people calling a 23-year-old a bum or like, these type of things where you're just seeing, and look, that's a wider issue in society in general, but like, um, I don't know how much you can blame the media for any of that. Like, I think if you're a passionate journalist and you actually want to find out things, you will, and like that's where people separate themselves. So like if you want to be fucking good at your job, that will show over time. And like a good journalist will genuinely know the ins and outs of the sport and the ins and outs of the fighters. And like those guys will highlight things and those guys will see things that others won't. And they'll make it a hell of a lot more interesting for the fans who want to be non-casual. Like there's other sports that I follow very casually, and like that level of coverage is fine for me. But then there's things where I really want to know the guys and like know the athletes, and like obviously in fighting, that would be the sport that I'm most invested in. But like I love reading good pieces on like, it used to be Bloody Elbow, but that's obviously gone these days. But like even MMA fighting and the deep dives that you see people doing, and like MMA on Point do some very good videos where they go back into the history of certain things, and like now they highlight guys who are being affected by that. It's incredibly interesting. It's really good work, and like it's a yeah. Look, like how much can you blame media for the culture behind anything? There's a degree of that, I suppose, but ultimately, like, what are you gonna do? Sit there and fucking blame people for what you're unhappy about? Nah, just change your perspective, or else fucking get on with it and do shit anyway. You know.
What advice would you give to the younger guys coming onto the scene?
There's a lot of different things. But by and large, I would say work your skill set. Don't be like the biggest thing you need to build in this career is a legitimate skill set. And a lot of guys are looking at building their records or building like, and that is part of the game. They're not stupid for doing that. That's in a way intelligent, but like ultimately you can be 4, 5, 6-0 being offered good money to fight and like been offered a place in a decent promotion. But if you don't have the skill set to go and back that up, it's a very temporary thing. So if you want a sustainable career in martial arts, focus on skill set first. And when you have a skill set, opportunities will come your way. And if you focus on having a high level skill set And that was something that I made a little bit of mistake of, as in like I was just trying to get signed to the right promotions early on. And I was focused more on what would appeal to them. And for that, it was like building a record, knocking guys out, finishing guys. It's like, okay, all that's good, but like, and ultimately we'll try to build some of those things, some of the skills you need to do that, but focus on the skills. Because when you focus on those things, they come a lot faster.
Yeah.
Whereas when you focus on what other people are perceiving, you're seeing a lot more bullshit. You're not totally in control of how somebody perceives you, but you are totally in control of your skills. So you feel much more empowered by those things. So I try and make a young lad see that perspective because that's something I've come to over time. It wasn't something I originally had.
Mm.
So now I have that kind of one thing of like, okay, look, it's good for me if Octagon see me a certain way and they know I'm an ass whooper or whatever, but like it's a hell of a lot more important that I know I'm an ass whooper. And I actually think, like you say, like you're like, oh, you come across as that guy. Yeah, because I am that guy because I went and focused on all that shit for a long time. And I will continue to do so. So like if I see a problem, I'm not gonna go, oh fuck, people are gonna see that problem. I'm gonna go, okay, what's the solution? How do I get better at this thing? I have a little hole here. Like, oh, when I'm throwing this, I'm not covering that. Okay, cool. Let me go and work that for fucking 3 or 4 weeks. It's not gonna be an issue. Like it's that kind of a mindset. That's so like what you focus on is what you'll get, in any aspect of life. So that would be the advice that I'd be giving a young lad is like focus on your skill set because skills are by far the most valuable thing in this game. And like even you can fucking vary that and give it like a certain period of time to a certain block. And again, life is never perfect. Like with martial arts injuries, so like all sorts of shit happens. But like be focused on something, even when you're injured. Okay, now it's time to like build your leg strength. Like, my thumb was broken pretty badly there for a while. I probably tried to do too much with it and caused like other damage by like trying to do extra shit with the thumb broken. But I made my legs very strong during that period of time, you know. And then I had a little bit of a leg injury. And then while that was happening, I was way more focused on my thumb and my grip and all that sort of thing. So like there are things you can do no matter what. And like there's skills you can build regardless. And like I think it's have that mentality of like, how am I making myself better today?
Yeah. I know you said earlier that you do have you're short on time. I just have two questions if I could just squeeze in a third.
Sure.
I've spoken to you this evening, and I can see if you kind of trim away all the brashness, shall I say, you are someone that you do have quite a lot of useful things that a lot of people, especially the youngsters, would they need to hear. I mean, have you ever considered probably doing your own podcast where you speak to other fighters and other people affiliated within combat sports? You know?
Not while I'm still fighting, Like, look, um, I've always felt like your best weapon in this game is your brain, but it's yours. And you can't, like, I've very rarely said something to somebody and seen them click and be like, oh, hey, because like a lot of people have given me really good advice over the years. And unless I learned that lesson myself, I rarely took that advice.
Mm.
So in a way, martial arts is a great thing because of like, or fighting or this type of career, your ass is on the line. So like you're gonna learn things if you're gonna stay in it. If you want to see and you're able to take the hits, if you want to keep getting better, which you fucking obviously should if you're doing this thing, you're gonna be forced to adapt and forced to learn things. And I feel like your brain is obviously your best weapon in this, but nobody can do that for you. Like people can point things out and people can refine information and people like I've had great coaches over the years who've like shown me things that I wouldn't have caught myself anywhere near as quickly as they've been able to show it to me. But also a lot of the techniques that I use are things that I've just fucking figured out over the years. Probably 70% of the skill set I have is like from doing martial like just like the stuff I actually use in fights. It's just stuff that I saw, I watched, I broke down, I learned kind of myself nearly, and then I started doing it. And like, yeah, okay, there's obviously things like loads of things that I've learned from being taught things. Way more, yeah, like I'd say it's hard to put percentages on any of that, but like you got to figure a lot of stuff out yourself as well. And you have to have a mindset of like breaking it down, analyzing it, and like even some of the best young lads I know, they wouldn't talk anything like what I talk like. They wouldn't fucking be anywhere near as good at communicating this, but I can see practically they have that thing where they break shit down and they will come in the next day and they'll counter that movement and they'll do that thing and they'll have learned. So it's very nice to be able to put all this shit verbally, but it's much more important to be able to perform it physically. That's the game we're in at the end of
Hmm.
the day. You can talk all the shit you want, but if you can't go out there and fucking perform, doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
so yeah, no, I've never really seriously considered getting into podcasting or anything like that. But like, I think if I were to do something like that, it would be at the end of my career. It would be when I'm done with fighting, you know. Because I think like anytime you do something like this, you give a little bit of yourself away. And look, not that I don't give a bollocks if somebody knows me quite well. Like even, I feel like I could fight any of my close training partners. It wouldn't really bother me too much. But like, I also feel like when you're in, like, hopefully things get bigger and bigger, and you're in this spotlight position. It's probably best keep a degree of mystery around yourself, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And a
Uh-huh.
podcast is a very long form type of thing.
Yeah. I
Where
agree.
if you were doing that yourself week in, week out, I don't know. Like, I'd rather like maybe a YouTube thing or something where you can be quite edited and watch a show or whatever. But like a podcast, you're gonna ramble, you're gonna say shit, you're gonna like expose your true character. And like, I love my true character, it's something I'm very fucking proud of. But
Yes.
like, also, you need to keep that degree of mystery about things because mystery is powerful in ways like.
Yeah.
So I hope that's somewhat
No,
answered the question
no,
anyway.
it is. It does definitely because I can tell you from experience, podcasting itself is you got to have the time to do it.
Yeah,
It can be
yeah, yeah.
time consuming.
No doubt. Yeah.
Octagon MMA 62, and I've asked you about this earlier, but can you just maybe like kind of summarize what the fight
Yeah.
fans can expect to see on the night from you in the cage?
Yeah. So for the 50 or 60 odd thousand coming, they're going to see Will Fleury walking forward, picking clean shots, hopefully catching him on the chin nice and early,
Mhm.
setting that big shot up, getting that finish, and celebrating like a mad Irish bastard. So
Nice.
that's the ideal night,
I like
October
it.
20th,
I
Frankfurt. Should be
like it.
good. Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited about this, man. It's very like, yeah, there's kind of an undercurrent of like energy coming up in my soul now every time I think about this. So like, look, I just have to keep that down now and not let it get anywhere over the top. And I, right now is the period of time where you can kind of get carried away and do too much. Just relax, let it come, keep the energy for the fight now.
And last but by no means least, any shout outs you'd like to give? You surely
Loads
definitely have loads of people.
Yeah, tons. But like, I think all those people, like, if I'm gonna sit here and name everybody, it would take far too fucking long. But like, I have a couple of sponsors, Perform Nutrition now, chiropractics. They've been amazing. Like Paul Bradley has been incredible for me. Like he's just done a hell of a lot of work. Flow Recovery. I go down there quite a bit, and they've been great with me, just sponsorship wise. And then obviously all my training partners in SPG and anyone I've used for this camp. Um, a lot of good guys out there, so they all know who they are, and I hope that, yeah, look, I'll tell them that personally in their own time.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm very, very
Nice one, man.
grateful. You're one of the names that I've been meaning to speak to for a very long time. Guys, if you did enjoy the episode, please don't forget to leave a like on YouTube and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you're watching or listening to this rather on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes, don't forget to leave a rating. Well, once again, thank you for coming on the show. Thank
Always.
you.